The best chats are always the unscripted ones. There are interesting stories all around us, and here's one of them.
Open your eyes, spectacular's right in front of you.
Oh yeah, this is totally unscripted, so we never know where this is going to go.
Dangerous.
This is the unscripted perspective. And here's your host, Phil Parker. Phil Parker. Phil Parker. Phil Parker.
Well, hello. It is another unscripted perspective with me, your host, Phil Parker. And of course, I always have awesome people on the show. I'm really relaxed today, actually. I have the green screen behind me. All the Disney fans will know that is Cars Land. So there you go. Always fun. But I have Austin Kerr here, who is a businessman. I just found out he's a former musician. He's an entrepreneur. He's all these amazing things that we get to talk about for the next hour or so. And people management was one of those things that we talked about as well. But Austin, welcome to the show. How are you, buddy?
Thanks for having me. I'm doing great, man.
You're a techie. You're all over the show.
All over the place.
And soon to be a father as well, which is a congratulatory mention, because that's always cool. Being a father of two myself, that's a journey that you're going on that will change your life forever, my friend. But so for those who don't know who you are, give us a little bit of a bio on your backstory, kind of who you are, what you're doing, just so we can get cracking into the nitty gritty stuff.
Yeah, sure. So kind of the cliff notes. When I was 18, I started a band, decided I could tour the world, figured out how to do that, toured for a bit. After about 8 years of doing that, decided to go back home. Well, first I decided to do some hip hop and did some rapping. And then as I was starting to take off, did some festivals. I was like, okay, I'm ready for my next phase. And so I then went and wanted to see how my music knowledge or music business knowledge could then apply to the business world. So the first thing I did was I did a lot of tour managing as well as playing. And so I was the senior executive at a theme park that was seasonal. So I had to hire 500 people and manage them in a park that was Halloween based. So I did that, and that was cool. And then I was like, cool, I like corporate. This is nice. Although that's only, kind of corporate. And so from there, I got into doing more tech stuff. Eventually ended up landing a role at an investment company called Equity and Help. So I was there from one of the first 5 employees to when it was around 40 or so. We got Inc. 500 3 years in a row. I was senior executive over HR, IT, marketing, sales, legal, a bunch of stuff. And it was there that I started building some custom tools to manage employees. So, obviously I had a lot of rich experience that had made me successful, and trying to hire people and find people who had similar amounts of experience or would be similarly successful right off the bat was really hard. It was hard to find people who had that. And so I always believed in hiring people who were less trained, because frankly, they're cheaper, but also they have more to grow. They're usually going to be more similar. If you train them, they're going to know things the way that you know them, and it's going to be more copacetic to work. And so as I was building some tools and stuff like that, and the company was expanding a lot, I realized I needed a way to train and manage employees. And so I started building more tools just kind of on my own time based on that. And soon after that, a lot of my business friends were going, wow, I see the systems you have in place. I see the way you have things set up. That looks great. You guys are, you're growing so fast. Revenue is going through the charts. And so I decided, great, well, that sounds interesting. Currently I'm an employee. Well, I'm a top exec. I'm an employee. So I want to make that jump into a business. And I decided that a software to then make training employees and dealing with employees easier would be a good place to start.
Wow. That's an awesome bio. I think that's the most detailed one we've had on the show so far. So I appreciate that, because a lot of the stuff can be glossed over. I mean, I love how you just kind of was like, yeah, I just toured the world. I was in a band, and then I was a rapper, and then And then I did some business because that's what I really want to talk about. I really don't want to talk about music.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because you talk to a lot of people, and the music and that traveling and stuff like that would be like that would be the end, right? It was a really funny thing for me because I obviously decided I wanted to be a musician. I come from a big musician family. My grandma was signed to Capitol Records. My mom had a few songs on local radio, and she was a voice teacher, and so music was in my blood. And when I started doing, I started because of the music. I wanted to write songs and engage with fans and all that stuff. But really, as I did that stuff, the things that I was always most excited about wasn't like playing in front of a big crowd. It was like the business moves I made. Like, ooh, I set up these shirts in these ways. I did this survey, and look how high our stats are compared to the last tour. Or look how elaborate this thing that we put together, this pre-sale, this launch offer. And I was always really, really engaged, and I worked a lot with like management and booking agents. I booked a lot of tours in my years there in the music industry. I booked for myself and other people, I think over like 400 touring dates.
Wow.
So all that stuff is just self-taught. And yeah, but when I was then thinking about my life and, as I was getting out of my early 20s and into my late 20s, and I was thinking about it, I was like, what really makes me excited is the business part. And a thing a lot of people don't know about music is obviously money's not the point of everything, but it is a big part of things. And so even when you're an artist who maybe has a song that's charting on some of the smaller charts, you're touring full time in multiple countries, a lot of those people, like I was making like maybe $7,000 a year. We had food covered for us, we had transportation covered, so it's not like I had all the same expenses that everyone else does.
And that was before Spotify and stuff, right?
No, that was right around Spotify. So
right around when they started pretending that they were paying people really well. And,
I mean, like a simple explanation of the way that royalties work is when you get signed to a label, it's actually the worst loan you can imagine. Basically, what happens is you think that the label's paying you money. They're not. They're giving you a loan based on you potentially doing well in the future. And in return for that loan, you have to pay them back. Like you have to pay back advances and stuff, right? And so when you get signed, you get a signing bonus. That's an advance. You have to pay that back. And what do you pay that back with? You pay that back with your music sales, right? But you only get a small portion of music sales. So even like if you're signed to a big label, you're only going to get like at most 20% of those sales of the music. And the rest 80% is theirs for lending you the money. Now, out of that 20%, you still have to pay back the advance. So you're not going to see your money until you pay all that back. And so
that's mad.
It's a crazy world. Another big part of the music industry that was crazy on the business side is as the band, you're the business owner. Like, if you look at like Justin Timberlake is an LLC, right?
Yeah.
Or a corporation. And so he's the owner of that corporation, and he gets paid based off of gross or net profits, right? So right, this is how I think of music, so you can understand why I got into the business world. So when you're talking about like Justin Timberlake, right? He has a certain amount of money that's being made. He does a concert and he probably makes a buck ton of money, right? Let's say probably a small number. Let's say on a night he makes $10,000, right? So he's going to have a few people who are getting paid percentages of the gross. So his booking agent is going to get paid something like 15% of the gross. His management is going to get paid something like 20% of the gross. He might have a publicist who might get paid like 5%, might have a lawyer who getting paid 5%, right? And so if you do all that math up, you're sitting around 40% or more, right? That's coming off the top.
It's gone.
Right? That's gone, right? But you have expenses based on that gross, obviously, right? So if you're selling shirts, you're having to, again, print your shirts. And so you have a cost of goods, and then you have your profit after that. But 40% is tacked on top of that. So let's say you buy a shirt for, I don't know, $8 a piece or $10 a piece to make it easy. And then you are selling that shirt for $20 a piece, right? There's also a 40% gross that's stuck in there that's going away. So you're only making at that point 10%.
Yeah, no thanks.
Right. And out of that, you have to pay a merch guy, you have to pay for buses, you have to pay for drivers, you have to pay for crew. Right. So
karaoke, yeah.
Karaoke, right? So it's not so you could be actually pretty successful. You could be, there's people who have stuff on the radio, and if they don't keep getting hits, they get broke because they don't have a lot of surplus, right?
Yeah.
And so like when I was running stuff, because although I was like a band member, I was also at one point in my life, I was regarded as like the hardest working person on Warped Tour, which is like a thing. It's part of the music industry for like 1 year. And basically I would wake up at like 7 a.m. On this like totally outdoors tour. I'd wake up at 7 a.m. I'd set up the merch tent myself, even though I was in the band. I would, do all the orders, do all the stuff. I would then walk around CDs, hustling CDs. And then I would go back in, hustle CDs throughout the day. I would do press, I do things. And then at the end of the day, I would, sorry, that's my dog. And then,
he disapproved. Disapproved.
So then at the end of the day, I would then tell my merch guy to go home, and then I would pack up, and then I'd put that in the trailer. And I do all that myself, not the other band members. And so the reason why I did that is because, right, we weren't making a lot of money. And so instead of hiring a super experienced merch guy, I would hire a very inexperienced merch guy. And because I wouldn't be paying him a lot, I wouldn't expect a lot of him. So I would do the extra work, and he would do the just manning the tent and the basics, right? And so this is kind of how I got used to hiring people and dealing with training and dealing with employees. And that was kind of like my world. And so, yeah, anyways, when I decided to get into like, was trying to think, okay, what am I going to do next? And I was like, okay, well, I could do this hip hop thing. And then I was like, oh, this is fun. It's just me. I'm not having to deal with like, other voices. But then I was realizing as I started to get a little bit of success on that front, that it was really just the same thing. I was going to run into the same thing with managers, with booking agents, with labels, all this money that's coming off the top. And I remember that there was this day when I was really trying to think like, what am I going to do with my life? Right. I was like 26. And so I said, okay, I imagined a restaurant, like a fancy restaurant, a nice steakhouse. I'm a vegan now, but a nice steakhouse at the time. And I imagined who's in there, right? So out of a room of 100 people in a nice fancy steakhouse, how many people were musicians? Like one? How many people were actors? One, maybe two, maybe probably a local thespian. And then who else was in that room, right? Because not just money, but if you're successful, it should feel like you're successful, right?
Yeah, no,
you should be able to play bigger, fun, more engaging games where you're able to focus on growth versus keeping the lights on, right? And so when I was thinking about that world, I realized, okay, well, lawyers, there would be like 10 lawyers in there. Doctors, there's like 15 doctors, right? And the rest are business owners. So I said, okay, cool. Well, corporate, I like business. It's, in the end, do I even really think about the music industry? I don't really, because I'm still doing what I love. I'm still putting together marketing schemes and plans and working with employees and motivating them, getting them more engaged, improving, their skills and abilities. And so, yeah, to me, it all like makes sense. But when from the outside in, it might sound a little crazy.
Well, I mean, that's a hell of a story. And thank you for giving us it's one thing that we've had a lot of on this show, which vicariously, I think we're just continuing to do it by having you on, is a lot of musicians, like new artists, up and coming artists, which is really, really cool. One of who's become a really close friend of mine, Tony Mercedes.
Nice.
Really cool dude. Just so much history in the music industry. It just would amaze you. And then, you go into that world even more, and you realize that these people are just so passionate and they want to make the music. It's the adapting. And like you said, like, there's no money to be made unless you're like on tour, selling like all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
If you've got your own label, all that kind of thing. So yeah, I can understand why you would want to navigate yourself out of that, but it's funny how you found yourself in this business world and all that kind of just transpired after such a kind of extravagant journey, because a lot of people, once they get into that fanciful world, they don't want to leave it. They just want to hey, let's make more music. Hey, I want to be a rapper. And I mean, to be fair to you, I've listened to your music. It's not that bad. Like, I mean, there was no reason to just up and quit or anything. It was a case of love lost, I suppose, for the art form a little bit, maybe, and just kind of. I see where you're coming from now when it comes to like. I love music. I love writing. I love all that stuff. But if it's not gonna like pay the bills, then it's like I did stand-up comedy for 6 years. It didn't pay the bills. I couldn't do it anymore. And I wasn't one of those people that could easily just go, hey, yeah, let's just sleep on couches and go around the country and try and make it work. I'm like, no, I like my bed, number one. And number two, I'm not about that life. So I enjoyed it while it lasted. I did some gigs. I thought maybe I might try it again when I came to the US, but it just never transpired that way. And I ended up just doing entertainment in a different fashion. And now I do this. Mm-hmm. So, and I enjoy this so much more. Like it's productive, entertaining, creating content and just being the person to kind of show people what's out there. Like, not being funny, but like I would never have known about your software if I hadn't met you on Facebook. You know what I mean? So,
yeah, absolutely.
So, so tell me about that transition. I mean, you've kind of left the music world, so to speak, and now you've made this software. Tell me a little bit about the software and just how it came about. Like, obviously, through your career, you've kind of found tools that have made it easier for you. Because I'm in the business world. I'm a business leader. I've been in management for forever, it feels like. And I know how much of a struggle it is to hire, to train, to really motivate people. One of the things that we've spoken about many times on this podcast with other entrepreneurs is now it's not about just money anymore. It's about value. It's about, what value you can give to your employees, because let's face it, I can go and do Uber and Grubhub and all these and make really good money. Like, not even kidding you, I was delivering Amazon today just for a bit of extra cash, and it was $22 an hour. Like, and I get to be my own boss essentially as a business. I can claim mileage, I can claim cell phone expenses, like all this kind of stuff. I'm like, why do I need to go to work again? Okay. So that's what you're competing against now, is you're trying to get people to come work for you, and you're going, hey, I'll give you $19 an hour, and I'll give you a set schedule where you have to come in from this hour to this hour. Whereas if you go to do Grubhub, you can literally go, I'm done delivering food, I'm going home. Like, legitimately, the difficulties that have come about because of COVID, because of people realizing they can do different things. Like, businesses now have to really be creative. Like, brick and mortar stores now have to be really creative because they're trying to get people to walk in the store. So it's like, hey, you can buy it online, or you can come in the store and get an extra 20% off. And you're like, I don't know how much I really want that 20%. You know what I mean?
The gas, the time. Yeah.
So tell me about the just how that whole software came about and what the tool actually is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm there to give a proper transition into like the mind frame of like that employer, right? And how all these things kind of fit together. I'll just say one last thing on like that transition from music. And so one of the really big things that you remind me of that was a big part of the decision is when you're in a music world, right? You have one of the problems you have is a lot of people are creatives, right? So everyone's a creative, and you don't really need that many creatives, right? So you have your booking agent. Well, he used to be in a band and he didn't make it out, so he's now booking. But if he gets a chance, he'll create. He'll say, "Oh, change this color, change that font," right? Your manager, same thing. The publicist, same thing. The person who owns the label, they used to be in a band. They didn't make it. They ended up buying other, band stuff and whatever, right? So one of the big problems that I hated, and this was really why I decided that I was done with it, right? Because I started running into the same thing where I would go, great, I'm going to create a song this way. I'm going to create, this is my image. I'm going to create because I'm a creative, right? And then someone else would come in and go, hey, well, what if it was more aggressive? And then someone else would come in and say, okay, well, what if you were all white at this thing? And it's just kind of frustrating because it's not needed, right? I want to be a creator and I want to create, and there's other people in the world who don't want to do that, right? And so when we're now talking about the business world, right, you have a kind of a harmony of people. You need different people who have different strengths, who enjoy different things, that can then do things together, and you have a group, right? And so when you're talking about like the Grubhub or the, you know, not even necessarily like the ease of it, but like this like very big creator economy, or this freelance world, what you're dealing with is really a breakdown of what a business or what a group could be. A group should be fun, it should be engaging, it should be challenging, but it should also give you the freedom of having things you're not responsible for. So when someone decides to be like an Amazon driver, right? There's a lot of things you're not responsible for. You're not responsible for making sure there's orders for you to fill. You're not responsible for packaging. You're not responsible for making sure the money came in, dealing with chargebacks. You're not responsible for paying the ultimate vendor, right? All these things are solved for you. And so it becomes a really nice employee experience for you.
I mean, it really is. It really is,
right?
Amazon have really just made it work. Like, and not to cut you off or anything, but like, you know, you've got like DoorDash and all these companies that have come out, and it's literally just an app. I'm not even kidding you. I was sitting here before the podcast, and I was chatting with my mother-in-law, and I was like, "Hey, tomorrow, you're working from home. You know, maybe I'll grab another shift." And she's like, yeah, cool. You know, she'll be in bed or whatever. And I literally went into the app. I was like, oh, there's one from 11:45 to about 2:30. I'll take that. Does that work? And she's like, yep, cool, got it. I know how much I'm making. I know the hours I'm working. It's so simple. I literally arrive with an Amazon vest, which they provide, by the way.
Yeah.
And then I track my miles, I track my gas, and at the end of the year, I do all the taxes like I'm a business owner, and it works. And dude, I'm not even kidding you. It's so simple. And outside of maybe running away from dogs, it is a great gig. Like,
it's a great gig.
It really is.
So and so what you're missing in that, and you know, these changes, these types of jobs, these Ubers, these, right? We're only like, I mean, Uber's been around a bit, but like in the widespreadness that it's at, we're only at about 5 years, maybe 6 years, right? And so you're not able to really see the effect on a larger economy, or, you know, on a country or an international level of what that's going to do for people, their morale, what they care about, right? So all these things are very, very interconnected, right? And so the problem you run into with this like gig economy is that there's not really a further purpose. You're not doing anything, right? You took a thing that a person probably didn't need from a place that someone else owned.
100% didn't need it.
And you've just placed it, right? So how many years could you do that before you got super depressed and felt like you had to move to, I don't know, Timbuktu or something? Like, you would have to make a change because you're not going to feel fulfilled as like what you're doing with your time. Because basically what's happened, right? This is my viewpoint of what's happened in the business world. Is a business relationship is very similar to like a relationship with your spouse, right? These things aren't that different, right? And so you end up having like the people who hurt others in a relationship are people who were hurt themselves, right? Some girl when she was 18 had some boyfriend who was a D-bag, and you know, whatever, was really rude to her and didn't pay her time, and so she's more likely to later, you know, pick up on that ability or on
Careful.
that viewpoint.
There could be a network watching. They could pick that up for like a show idea or something.
Careful. Yeah, right.
And you better copyright that.
Right. And so they, you know, that person, and then they're going to hurt the next person because they're going to become the big tough person and make sure they're not hurt. Right. And that's kind of this like circle of hurt that we deal with in relationships or whatever. That's a whole nother subject. But there's a very similar thing that happens with the business. Right. So you're like, okay, great. I have a podcast. I really enjoy this podcast. You start getting lots of listeners. You think, okay, well, what other types of podcasts can I do? How can I make this more successful? You're going to hire employees, right? So you become the employer. Now, when you become the employer, right? I mean, hey, it's the future, right? Future is bright, right?
Yeah, right.
So now you become the employer and you start hiring employees. Okay, great, right? Now, most employers never got taught how to be an employer. The majority of them did it because they were really good at podcasts, or they were really great plumber, or they're really good at sales, and they didn't really like the job they had before, and they wanted the freedom. So for freedom, they become an entrepreneur and they start a business, right?
Yes.
And so this is kind of a widespread effect that we're having now, which is ultimately very good for the economy, but I'll get to that in a second. So now you have a bunch of people who are going off and doing stuff. Now, some of those people are going to fail. They're riding a wave that exists now, and the market will get saturated, and there'll be too many YouTubers and whatever. But other people will rise, and they're going to become successful enough they need to hire employees, right? And so what most people don't realize is the second they hire employees, they become that person who pissed them off before, right? So I was a salesperson, let's say, at a company, and I made all these sales, and I never got my bonuses or whatever. I was holding the company. I said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to become my own boss. And then now it's your company. So you start selling whatever you're selling, and you hire some new person, and there's some new upstart, and you go, well, I need to pay him everything because I'm the one who put this here in the first place. This is my company. I'm doing it for me, right? And the reason why that employer had that viewpoint of very me is because at the last place, some other guy had the viewpoint of very them. And this guy got the short end. And it starts and it keeps going cyclical, right? And so you end up with a lot of people who hate their job. A lot of people hate their job. Like, it's what you spend a third of your life doing. And because so you people start to think, well, if I'm going to hate it anyways, they just assumed work is going to suck. I might as well just, and it's not going to do anything for me. It's not really going to affect anything beyond me. It's just going to be something I waste my time in and get some money. Well, why not go to Uber or why not go to Amazon, pick up a box that I don't know and put it somewhere that I don't know and then do nothing, right? Yes. Because you can make money and it's simple. But what we're doing is we're moving further and further away from the actuality of creating, like back in the 50s, back in the 1910s, people had a job and they had coworkers that they would have for years. They had the white picket fence, they had the family, they had these communities, they interacted with their community, and there was a sense of togetherness. And so the thing that I'm trying to do with my software, right? And this isn't necessarily how I started the software, because I started because I had some problems and I wanted to solve them. But this is how I think. And so as I have gone more in this world, I've realized that not enough people think this way, right? But what I wanted to do was I wanted to make a software that made it easy to be a good manager, right? Because people do the easiest thing, right? If you are in a town and you don't live anywhere close to downtown, you're going to drive and you're going to get fat because you're going to be driving, right? But if there's a nice walking path and it's much more beautiful and you can go there and you have a bunch of friends who are also walking, then you're going to walk because that's easier. That's more pleasurable, right? And so what happens is a lot of people, right? You go, great, I have this podcast. I'm going to go and hire people to do the podcast with me. Now, the problem you're going to run into, one of the biggest problems, there's a few that my software solves, but one of the biggest problems is that what will make you a great podcaster, what will make you great at not just doing the podcast, but how you promote it, how you construct it, how you edit it, the software you use, the way you plan it, all those things is actually the culmination of your entire life. The things from being a comedian, the way you went to high school, the arguments you got in with your best friend, all those things are what taught you what was right and wrong and affected your personality to make a good decision. And so if you today went, okay, I need a guy to help me promote, you would assume that it would be very easy to get someone to promote things the same successful way that you do.
Yes.
Right? But it's not, because they weren't a comedian, because they didn't have an argument with your best friend, because they didn't go to your same school. So actually, like something that a lot of business owners think is that things are obvious. You go, oh, well, call a guy. Oh, you shouldn't, insult their mother when you're doing a sales call. That's obvious. Well, it's not. It's obvious to you because you did it before. You made a mistake and you learned from it. And so people kind of create all these internal policies, internal rules in their head as they're growing a business and making it successful, right? And so what I found is a lot of people will tell people, hey, you should write things up. You should train people. You should make sure that your employees know stuff, right? But nobody made it easy to train employees to keep track of this information. It's just like, I don't know, put it in a Google Drive folder and in a way that makes sense to you today, which might not make sense to you in a year from now. It might not be, able to be organized. The next guy you hire, it's not going to make sense to them because they didn't have an argument with your best friend, right?
Right.
And so there's all these kind of unique things that become really, really hard when you're a business owner. Training is a huge part of it. And so that's what my software is for.
Essentially, what you're describing is life experience.
Life experience, correct.
I mean, something you said just a second ago kind of resonated with me. Nobody trains people how to be leaders. So it's a similar situation. I started with a company and was hired because they had great parts people, for example, right? And auto parts industry is where I was for a lot of my career. And so, trust me, I got into the auto parts career thing because it was by accident. It wasn't because I was like, hey, I'm a motorhead, I want to work on auto so I ended up getting an interview, and the reason why they were hiring outside the company is because they had a bunch of amazing parts people, and they made them managers. Except the problem is, they're amazing parts people, but they're not good leaders.
Yeah.
So they had nobody with good business acumen to run the business side of the auto parts industry. So I was hired with basic knowledge of auto stuff. Like, I mean, I know my way around a car, but I'm not going to I'm not a brain surgeon. You don't get you know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing. Now I know a lot more since then, but
sure.
I went into that interview and he was like, great. Yeah. When can you start? It's like, we need to get this sorted. And I spent a few years with that company, and it was very much, and then I ended up staying in the industry, and it ended up being shopped by the same thing. I have this problem. They're not good with business, and I need you to come fix it. So I became this fix it manager, which, whatever. I mean, one of what you just said is very true. I mean, nobody trains people how to communicate with their employees. Like, I have this conversation. I was literally in an interview 5 days ago, and I said the same thing. Nobody communicates effectively as leaders. Nobody.
Yeah.
If you think you do, then you're the one that is not communicating effectively. Because the reality of the situation is when you're going, hey, I need you to do this, you're assuming that person has the skill set and is in your brain and knows what your expectation is.
Exactly.
So that expectation,
which is crazy.
Yeah, it's like, okay, being a parent, hey, I need you to clean your bedroom, okay? And not even kidding, he's 4. He doesn't know what a clean bedroom looks like. You know what I mean? Like, he might go, wow, when I clean it, or when mommy cleans it, because we actually clean it. So he picks up like 4 things, put them on the bed, just basically plays chess with the things that are on the floor and puts them in areas that are not on the floor, right? You got shirts just draped over the chair and all this kind of stuff. Yeah, my room's tidy. See, everything's off the floor. And you're just like, no, that's not what. But it's the same thing with employees.
Yeah.
Hey, I need you to clean that toilet. Okay, what does a clean toilet look like to them? Like,
they have their own definition of clean, right? I say that to people all the time. It's like, you a lot of roommates will say, like, they'll have problems. And one of the basic things is like, they have different definitions of clean. One person, their idea of clean is there's no, objects visible that shouldn't be there. Another person's idea is there's no dust anywhere, right? And so those people are going to have a lot of arguments because they have basic misunderstandings between each other, right?
Right. So the expectation hasn't been set effectively. And so you could have 10 employees that all know how to do the job that you think they have to do, except if you line them up and you said, hey, I need you, for example, I went through this. Show me how you close the store. Yeah. Dude, I shit you not. Like, I'm not even kidding you.
It's not surprising to me at all. Yeah.
I was like, who showed you how to close, number one? And number two, how is it nobody called you out on this before? Like, for example, if you were making spaghetti, and I've seen my mom make spaghetti, my dad make spaghetti, I make spaghetti, right? Everybody makes spaghetti. It's an easy dish. If you don't, I'll give you a recipe. It's awesome.
I'm excited.
But I know. So, and you're just going, I mean, you're getting kind of the same result. Like, so you're like, the result is essentially the same, sort of. Like, you have pasta, you've meat sauce, you know, whatever. So nobody has called you out saying, Mom doesn't do it that way. Why are you doing it that way? Or Dad does it this way. Like, the same way with closing the business, are you telling me nobody's gone, why the F are you setting the alarm 10 minutes early, counting the till weird, you know, not putting the money in the safe, like all these things that are just like, what are you doing? It's just madness.
And so, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, so the crazy thing that I run into a lot, I mean, and I've been there because I've hired over 600 people in my life. And so people will try to hire experience. They want someone who's experienced. They want a salesperson who's going to come in and just close sales. But what's going to happen is they're going to open the till weird and they're going to not close the door right because they had their own experience that taught them that those things were right. And so the more experienced someone is in the field, the harder it's going to be to get them to be on your team. You're going to have to do more work than hiring a less trained person who's just going to go, oh, I've never closed a door like this before. Show me. Right? Exactly. That's actually a better quality.
They're more trainable.
Yeah, they're more trainable. When you're an employer, especially, you know, it's so funny because it's such a natural progression. People think that when they work at a company that has 200 employees, that the boss must be like not like them at all. But really, it's very simple. You start and you hire 2 people because you're overwhelmed by X, Y, and so you hire them, and then they start doing stuff, and it's, you know, good enough, and then you move on to the next, and you're just kind of building on this like kind of good enough. And at no point does it make sense to really start training people until you're like, oh my God, my business is losing money. I'm about to have to shut down. Like, I have to just teach people how to do this right. And I don't know. It just is this crazy thing where like the viewpoint of an employer to an employee is so different, but it's really just, it's that same thing. And what you want is someone trainable. But like I was saying before, there's just such a big burden to building training. Like if I were to tell you right now, hey, build training for everything in your podcast, you'd be like, I'm just going to go and do some DoorDash. Like,
yeah, no shit.
That sounds horrible, right? Yeah.
Well, so the thing is writing and I unfortunately have had to do that. I mean, writing training and processes and all that kind of stuff. You find yourself becoming, you don't even know how you do things sometimes. Like you're sitting there going, well, why do I do that? I don't even know. Shit. I just do it. Like, and that's not the way to train people. Like, what? No. To be honest, in all of my years, the one thing that is most successful is giving the why. Because when they understand the process,
with employee,
when they understand the process, when they understand the reason why behind something. So, why am I closing the till this way versus just doing it my way? Like, why am I counting the till a certain way? Why am I speaking a certain way on the phone? Why am I answering the phone a certain way? You know, all these things that we train people to do without giving them the why, that's why they don't buy into it. Like the last company I worked for, hey, you gotta pitch this rewards program every time someone comes in. Okay, why? Well, you just do, bro, or you don't work here. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like that's not how that works. Like you can't sell a program like that.
Yeah.
Tell them the whys behind it. Like you got to tell them, hey, like managers everywhere make this mistake. If you don't give them the why behind the process that you're giving them, there's no buy-in. There's no reason to buy in. I mean, they're just like, you're just fucking mad. You're crazy. Like there's something wrong with you. You need to like go into a corner, eat some Haribo and just chill. Cause I'm going to close whatever. I feel like we're closing a lot of tills tonight. But like,
hey, the metaphor works.
I'm going to do this my way, not your way, because yours just doesn't make any sense. And so it happens all the time. And like you said, people look for experience and experience means jack. I mean, you're essentially getting Mr. Stubborn to come and work for you.
Yeah. I mean,
90% of the time is, hey, we didn't do it that way over here. I mean, it was way better over here, so I'm going to do it this way instead. And you're just like, no, I want you to do it this way because this is how we do it here. So quit your bitching and do your job. It's just like, what's going on? So, okay, getting back to your software, because we literally talk about employees and hiring and how difficult it is for like 4 hours straight if we wanted to.
Probably, yeah.
Give me the process behind your software and how it actually, like, for example, I'm a customer, you're pitching your software to me. Give me that why behind your software. Why should I get your software?
Absolutely. So there's two things. So the first thing is something that I learned when I was really I was struggling to make sure that employees were not just getting trained, but using it, right? Because you don't want to just say, like you say, you don't want to say, hey, this is how you close a till. You want them to actually use it, right? So people use things that solves problems for them. And I really looked at how people use knowledge. You can get into education, the best technology for education and stuff like that. But most business owners, you don't want to mess with that, right? You want like the shortcut. So I believe in shortcuts. My software is filled with shortcuts. And so the basic of it is people go to school, they get overwhelmed with information, but they get the gist, right? You know from going to school what trigonometry is and what algebra is. But if I told you to do some right now, a sine and a cosine, you'd probably be like, right. But if you had to,
on purpose, I just want to point out that algebra has not been used since I left school. Okay, I am 38. 20 years ago now? I haven't touched an X or a Y in any way, shape, or form unless it was spelling. And even then, it was very seldom, because who uses X and Y in a word anymore? I don't even know.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. You just literally woke up like PTSD in my childhood about freaking trigonometry and algebra.
Exactly.
Anyway,
right. So
ahead.
You get the idea. Okay. So, but if you were doing something, if you were working on a car part and you needed to solve for X, right? If you needed to figure out the side of something and you didn't know what it was, you would just Google it, right?
Right.
And you would find an answer, right? So that's the basic way we do it. But the thing is that if you hadn't gone to school, you wouldn't know that there was something to Google. You wouldn't know what you don't know. School teaches you, It doesn't teach you all the information so you remember it. You just know what you don't know so that you can then use YouTube, Google, etc. to solve them, right? So that's the basic idea. So in order to train people well, what you do is you give them an onboarding course that they're going to forget, but it'll tell them what knowledge exists. And then when they need the knowledge, you have to make everything searchable.
Right.
Searchable, right? So that's the big thing, because you can make something searchable by titles, right? Someone could say, oh, I'm trying to figure out how to solve for this, measure this, I don't know, carburetor. And there might be an article that talks about carburetors, right? But in order to find that, they can't think title-wise. They would have to be able to just think word-wise. So my software offers like a word-level search. So you can create a course of knowledge that gets assigned to an employee automatically based on like their position or their department. And so when someone's added to the software or promoted, they're going to get all the courses that were built for them, right? So you're going to get that and go, great, I understand the gist. Good. Now, 4 months later, when they're running into a problem, they can pull out their phone on an app or on a computer, and they can search just whatever they see in front of them. Oh, yellow part of a carburetor. I don't know, a dipstick, right? So they can type dipstick, and then all the articles that have dipstick in them will show up. Right. And so an article can be a video, it can be a PowerPoint, it could be a PDF, it could be an article. And so, or like, just words. And so because it's in that format, people start from the get-go when they're not very experienced. Oh, I can go search this stuff later. And so a course doesn't have to be super detailed. You don't have to put everything in it. You just have to give them enough that they understand the basics, and then they can Google things or, your own private Google as they need it. So that's one of the ways that it makes things really, really simple. Because it's how people actually use it. So people are going to use that knowledge instead of like just continuing to come up to you and ask every time they need to close the till or it doesn't close right.
So is this geared because a lot of these big corporations already have something that you're pitching right now, like the big national corporations already have like hey, if you log into info, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah,
blah,
yeah.
and click on that. So is this really geared toward like the smaller businesses who might have like 500 employees or 600 employees or whatever that number may be?
Yeah.
It's geared toward like the smaller, maybe not so national businesses. Would that be fair?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you said, the concepts could be used at that level. And they don't necessarily have all of the features that I have, but yeah, most of my users are somewhere between like 500 employees all the way down to like 5, right? So
Okay.
anywhere in that scope is who's using my software. I think probably about the biggest is around 500. And so basically the idea is that it's a very easy and user friendly system to set up. So
Right.
the second part, I said there were 2 parts, right? So the I would say actually the first part is the documenting of knowledge. And so that's one of the biggest burdens for a business owner of any size, even if you're just a solo guy, right? You could also call it, if you wanted to, like business journaling, right? So as you have a business, as you have a podcast right now at your current size, right? I have a free version of my software for one person. And so someone's just at like that current size and they're figuring it out. Every time you figure something out, every time you get some more listeners, you just write it down. Hey, this is what we did. We were doing this before and I tried this and it's working, right? It doesn't even have to continue working after that. It's just you're noting it. And because of the way the system is, you can tag that knowledge with like relevant positions, departments, put it in categories. You can add tag, whatever you think of at the time, but it doesn't have to be a lot because you don't have to worry about it. It's just a really easy place to organize your knowledge instead of like a Google Drive that you know is going to be confusing later. Because this offers like word level search and stuff.
Cool.
So when you start, right, as a business owner, you just start putting down your knowledge. When you figure something out, when you close a sale, ooh, I did this, and you write it down, right? Because you have your own internal rules that you're setting up that's making you successful. And so if you just write it down via the phone app into your phone, great, it's organized, no problem. And so when you start hiring employees, you don't even have to have a course because you said, oh, I think this is relevant for a salesperson. That knowledge will be assigned to a person a little bit chaotically. When you hire your first salesperson, they're going to get, oh, here's all the knowledge, and I can start Googling and I can start searching it.
Right.
And then as someone that goes a little bit more, you're, oh, this is a little chaotic. Okay, well, now you're going to reorganize that knowledge into a course. You don't have to delete anything. You don't have to create anything new. You just literally drag it into an order in a course, and you say, great, this is for salespeople. Then it overrides the other stuff you said earlier. And so it's very, very, like, it might sound complicated, but it's very, very easy. You're just writing down things. You're writing down your thoughts, and then that can seamlessly transition into actually a pretty good training system because it's searchable from just that. And then, all the layers and stuff like that can then be added on top of it.
I mean, I love what you're doing. I love the innovative way of thinking. I mean, training is the biggest pain in the ass going for a lot of, to put it bluntly, for almost every company that's out there.
Yeah.
Mainly because you never have enough time. There's not enough time in the day to sit down and go, hey, Mr. Employee number 1, I just hired you and I need you to know how to serve a customer. But the only way you're going to learn how to serve a customer is you're going to probably cost me business by making mistakes. And these customers are going to be like first impressions, and you don't necessarily have the experience to say, hey, I'm a trainee, give me a moment. So this person thinks that we're idiots in our job and may not come back. And that's a customer lost. So there's 2 sides to this. You're allowing them to kind of say, hey, I have all this knowledge. I'm not a big multinational company, but I can make this training program for Joe Blow over here who wants to learn how to be a barista. And you now give him or her every process up to checking out the customer. And now they have the theory. So when they come to practice, it's like muscle memory. It's like, oh yeah, I remember they did that on the video, or she said that in the thing. And it's very, so does your software help people in making content for the training? Is that a portion of your software?
Yeah. So I have some stuff for that. I have some templates. I have some like course outlines and stuff like that people can fill in, which make that easier. Another probably the easiest way, and this is really how I create most of the knowledge in my company, right? I have a couple hundred articles, even though I don't have that many employees, is like through chat. So I'll be talking with someone, a new employee or something. They'll ask me a question. Instead of just replying to them there, I'll usually reply to them and they'll go, ooh, actually, that's probably going to be useful for people who are going to ask me that same question. And so I'll just copy that, put it in the knowledge base. Easy. The next time someone asks me, I can just give them the link. The next time someone asks me, they're probably going to look because they know I'm just going to give them a link.
Yeah.
And so they're going to search before they come to me.
No, you're the best boss ever. Hey, go to the link. But dude, what? Can you just give me the answer? I got a customer standing here. No. Just go to the link.
Because it makes you scalable, and that's really the problem people run into.
Yeah, 100%.
Is you're not always there. So, like for instance, we're talking about a barista. What if like the machine breaks down? Okay, well it's broken down before. Maybe it was 2 years ago with different employees who are here now. But because when I solved it for them, I said, hey, can you take a video of this? I'm just going to fix it and explain what I'm doing while I'm doing it. Right. And then I put it in the knowledge base. Now it's there forever. Now I'm on, vacation or whatever, and a new barista's there. He's only been there for 2 weeks. The thing breaks. Well, he knows he can pull out his phone, type, coffee machine or broken. Oh, well, here's a video that explains how to do it. Right. And so these things happen naturally because business owners spew out their knowledge all the time. So if you have a really easy place where you just write it down as you're spewing it out, then again, you just kind of naturally are creating this stuff.
Every single boss out there is hearing this conversation right now going, damn, that's a great idea, because I hate it when people call me asking the same question over and over. And 100%. And it promotes independence in the workplace. Like one of the things that really gets to me as a leader, and I'm sure many other leaders out there, is just fend for yourself, guys. Like, are you shitting me right now? You don't know how to fix a coffee machine? Okay, so how would you get that answer? And so what you're doing is you're saying, hey, I've made this knowledge base that allows me to go and be home with my family. And now this is the biggest selling point in my eyes. I can go home and be a dad knowing that I'd say if I've done my due diligence, I've left 80% of the questions answered for you. Now, there's going to be a 20% variable or 10%, depending on how much effort you've put into the knowledge base. But the more knowledge you put in, and if you're as, I'm trying to find a polite way of saying anal about answering questions like you are, but when you are so analytic about moving that data that you've just given this employee and put it into your software so the knowledge base is always updated with questions that you've received, then you're basically just, you're going to be that annoying guy for a while going, hey, just go to the link. Stop bothering me. Like, I'm busy. Like, I'm actually making the company money and building this business. I need you to make coffee. And
I mean, I would never say it like that. Usually the way that I transition
I know, you're too nice of a guy to say it that way, but I'm not. So
I'll just give them the link, because there's a few other problems that come about in the way that people spew out this knowledge but don't write it down, right? And so the big thing that happens is there's a variance in the way you explain things over time because you figure things out differently. And so if you have that barista who's been there for 4 years and you have this newer barista, you might explain how to do stuff entirely differently now than you did 4 years ago. And so that person who's before isn't going to get updated on the new versions of things. And that new person is going to think that, well, they know it. And so what's going to happen when those two are on the same shift together and the coffee machine breaks? They're going to have an argument. Right. And so a lot of employees, they bicker and they fight and she's doing blah, right. And it's because they don't have that same basic set of information. Right. And so when you start putting all of your knowledge into place, right, and you just say, someone asks you a question, you go, oh, well, here's the link. I'm just going to explain. It explains there the same way I could type it to you now, but this time you're going to get the same information. And another cool thing my software does is people can mark things as read, right? So obviously, like when they do a course, they're marking those articles that are in there as read. Well, you could also just go to a knowledge piece and you can say, oh yeah, I read that, and click it, right? And so when you then, as a business owner, or manager or whatever, as you then later edit that policy, it's going to look at who's read it before. It's going to send them an email. It's going to highlight the text and cross out what was removed. It's going to highlight what's new, cross out what's removed, like markup language. And then that employee is then going to be notified, oh, hey, this thing changed. Now, instead of 6 days off every year, we're now doing 8. Okay. But it's highlighted. So they're not going to have to read a whole thing and, 4-page policy. Okay, well, what changed
I like that.
here?
That's really
right?
cool.
And so that's one of those things. There's a lot of, I could go on for hours about all these little things I put in there. But there's a lot of little things in there that make it really easy for the knowledge, like seamlessly, to not be on the manager's shoulder to stay up to date or stay working, but it's on the software shoulders. And so it makes it really easy for that knowledge to be there. And one of the huge things to think about is, like you said earlier, huge companies do this. This is a very easily known, everyone knows that this is how huge companies operate. And so if you just start putting your intellectual property, which is what it is, your business knowledge, in a place like this where it's a real asset, then your business can expand and you make money, and employees can be happy because they're given all of the tools to achieve the challenges that are given to them. And that's when work becomes fun. And that's when people don't want to, oh, well, I can get paid more to, be a DoorDash person, because now your employees are winning a game, and that's worth a lot more to them, and it's worth a lot more for their time. So that's how my software really helps with that first question you asked.
Right. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That's awesome. For those who haven't noticed, I have added the link to your website, which I have gone on. It's actually pretty slick. I really like your website. So well done for that. Mine is not so hot. I'm working on it right now. I know everyone is giving me shit for it lately. I apologize. I am not this artistic person, but it is getting better. I promise. But yeah, your website is awesome. It's very intuitive. There's a lot of cool stuff on there. One of the things that is on there that I want to make note of is the contact page, setting up an appointment. Let me pull this up. I wanted to try, and I did have all this pulled up, and I guess Google just loves to change my world by closing things.
All the important ones.
The good news is Hue Management, you don't even have to put in the website, is well done you for SEO. For those who don't know what SEO is, basically I put in Hue Management on its own without any .com or .ie or wherever you are in the world. And it's the first one there. So let me do this. This is, by the way, why I love StreamYard, for those who care. It is a really cool, let me do this, hold on. And share. And here we are. This is huemanagement.io. By the way, IO is, it's not a specific to a country, for those who are wondering why it's IO. When I was actually getting my website, I toyed with changing to IO because it is a little bit cheaper, because .com is so popular, .net is so popular. They're starting to charge the earth for these coms and stuff. It's like having a cool phone number. They just, well, if you sell your soul to the devil and promise your firstborn, we can give you this phone number. No, I don't care. So this is huemanagement.io. As you can see from the first page, try it out for free. And I love that. So you can try it out for free for 15 days, no obligation. There's a demo. So there's so many cool things that you have going on here. I don't want to go too deep into it, because I want people to check this out and give themselves the opportunity to kind of look through it themselves and get the knowledge they need, or kind of ask questions and stuff. But one of the things is the starter plan. You've got lots of stuff going on here.
Yeah.
But it's, I mean, honestly, dude, I'm impressed. You're really making a difference, which is, I mean, it's kind of the point, really.
Exactly, right? That's why.
Yeah. You saw a gap in the market. You saw what people needed for small businesses. I literally had an amazing human being from Perth, Australia, school me on YouTube marketing the other day. Definitely check that episode out. It's really, really cool. Just amazing things like that. Like, small businesses need as much assistance as you can give them. And this is another tool for that. So just so we're transparent enough, can I use the software if my team is less than 5 members? Absolutely. Look, what I want for people to understand who are watching this, listening to this, this software, I haven't used it myself personally, but it is very much like, and it's kind of modeled and kind of built upon the idea of corporate America, right?
Yeah.
The big corporate model of making life easier for your leaders, for you, if you're a leader, for when those new employees come in, having the data that's needed. I'm a manager. I can tell you right now, I'm awful keeping notes. There's post-its everywhere. I forget stuff. Again, it could be a knowledge base for you. It could be whatever that is. It's for your company and whatever you're working on. It's something to build your business with. Much like YouTube marketing is for building sales, this is for building efficiency within your workplace. So your employees and anyone that comes into the business can have a better understanding of what you're doing and how you're doing it. There's so many questions that are answered here. They do live demos. This kind of showing you the website is just me giving you the opportunity to kind of see what it is without jumping into the website right now while you're watching the show. But essentially, you know, Austin, you're doing an amazing job. I think it's a great idea. It's really thinking outside the box. It's something that I have a lot of passion for because since having spoken with someone who's just amazing at YouTube marketing and the data, I mean, I don't know if you know this, but literally YouTube marketing, you can pick almost the hair color of people and just dial it in to where you're spending $500, getting free $500, and you're not paying for anything that's clicked to skip. There's just so much things that people don't know about. You can dial it into a zip code, a demographic. So Myra's hair salon can be picking on all the women from X age to X age who like a certain house. It's just unbelievable. So
yeah, I mean, that's really like where that's the depth of what I'm talking about. When it's like that knowledge that someone has is like such a huge asset, because imagine you took his course or you did the call with him, learned a lot, you applied that to your business. That's why you then get to that next level. That's why you're able to start hiring employees, because this thing works. And that's what happens for a lot of businesses. They start to expand because something works. Now you hire someone else who wasn't there in person. So you say, oh, do YouTube, make sure that the ads are to the right categories, and you walk away. They don't know. They're going to mess it up, and they're going to fail your business for you. Most businesses don't just fail because they didn't make enough money. They failed because they used to make enough money. They hired some employees who had no idea what they're doing, who said they knew what they were doing, or whatever. There was no training. And then they break a system that was perfect and worked because it took time and effort and energy and knowledge, right? And so, yeah, like exactly what like you're talking about with all that knowledge of YouTube, when someone gets that, a business has to you need to hold on to that, right? You need a document.
Yes.
You need to have it so that
when you obtain success, you need consistency after that. And a lot of businesses, and I don't want to go on too much because we've literally gone over the hour and it's late where you are, but the reality of the situation is a lot of businesses fail because they obtain success. They get that coveted win for the first year, and they struggle to retain that success because they don't know how they got there. They don't know they got there on a fluke, or well, maybe not on a fluke. They did it on their own bat, but they didn't take note of any of the steps they made. So they didn't leave any breadcrumbs to go and follow that trail back to success again. So now the following year, they're struggling to be consistent in their movements that they had the year prior. And so you have these businesses that fail or just struggle or go out of business because they can't find that success. They get stressed out, and it's just it's a secular effect where
it's horrible.
It's not fun.
I mean, the easiest thing, sorry, the easiest thing that also happens is like a lot of businesses. I know a guy who has a construction company and he's pretty successful. So he'll promote a bunch, he'll call all of his clients, he'll get a bunch of business, and then he'll need to go and start doing construction. And so what happens to marketing while he's doing that? Oh, it completely dies. So then he finishes his job, doesn't have any new jobs. He has to then jump off of construction and go, right? And so every time he jumps from side to side, like disasters could be happening on either side of that company. The construction projects are being done wrong, or no sales are happening because we're not reaching out to people the right way. And, that's another easy way that in that second year, it's like you're so busy, you don't have time to do the things that made you successful in the first place. Right. Anyways, we could go on for forever. I'll let you finish.
we can, of course. So, Austin, as we kind of finish out the show, I want, I suppose, the opportunity to be given to you to kind of give people the tools to find you. Number one, your social media and all that kind of stuff. The website's already on the page, but let's read it out for those who are listening to the podcast who haven't got the visual aid that is not going to be available to everybody once this is put up on the other platforms. And then, and just kind of, we'll close it out from there.
Sounds great. Yeah. So I'm Austin M. Kerr. My social everywhere is just at Austin M. Kerr. So, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I like giving out business advice on TikTok. The website is Humanagement. So that's human agement is one way of saying it. It's actually Hugh Management, like combined. But human agement is the easiest way to spell it. .io. And I would love to hear from you. I love doing demos, either me or my team. And we really like getting into how we can help you to have an easy way, right? It has to be easy. It has to be natural feeling, but an easy way to document your knowledge and make sure your employees are actually using it instead of random ideas. And then your business can expand the thing that you want, and you can have time for everything you need. Anyways, I can go on, but I look forward to hearing from you soon and my software really improving your business.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Austin Kerr. I can tell you right now, this man is skilled in a lot of things, business being one of those things. And I hope that you do reach out to him at humanagement.io. As those who watched the podcast as we stream live on YouTube and Facebook, you can, obviously, those of you who are listening to this can go and find this on YouTube and get to see Austin's lovely face and my awesome backdrop that's been pimped out since I got this green screen the entire time. But really, guys, do check it out. He's got a lot of knowledge. We could literally do a 5-6 hour podcast with this guy just because of how much information he has. And I think that is kind of the point. He has this information. He wants to give it to you. He wants to help you succeed. Much like guests I've had previously who are out to help small businesses or any kind of business just succeed in what can only be described as a very tough time in economics everywhere in the world, just because of trends changing, habits changing, money being scarce, all these things are happening. So don't suffer in silence. Definitely reach out to Austin and let him just wow you with his awesome singing voice if necessary, because he raps and sings. He's a musician, all that fun stuff. Anyway, that has been another Unscripted Perspective. I am Phil Parker. As always, I will be back again with another amazing guest next week. Until then, go with grace, and we will talk soon.
Thank you so much for listening, and be sure to leave us a rating or review on your favorite listening platform.
Be sure to keep in touch with us on Facebook and Instagram at
The Unscripted Perspective.
Or you can visit us at
www.theunscriptedperspective.com.